What's going on there, folks? It's the Earthmaster here on this Saturday night, August 13th, 2022 date. It is about 8:28 p.m. California time here along the West Coast. Latest quake shows some movement with a 4.9 earthquake now just coming in to the area around the Mediterranean region. It looks like 4.9. A lot of activity kicking up here throughout the globe. We're talking about a massive amount of earthquake activity. I have not seen it this busy in quite some time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the map here. This is the EMSC model. Looks like a 3.8 coming up, okay, into Western Turkey. That's going to be the one that we've seen over here on the globe, but not listed yet on the map, I don't believe. But man, we have been talking about some broad-scale earthquake activity throughout the day today, and most recently. Had quite a few fives here just within the last couple minutes. I don't recall the last time we've seen that type of movement. So here's the USGS map showing about the same. They're playing catch up a little bit. We're missing that 5.3 down here in the Vanuatu area, and also that four-pointer, upper four-pointer over around the, I believe they said Western Turkey area. So there's a couple earthquakes here, not listed on the map, but man, the ones that are, it's pretty busy. Look at this large-scale activity here around the Philippines. That's a pretty fashionable movement of earthquake activity. So just within this region here, folks, those four earthquakes, we had a 5.8 and most recently a 5.7, and a couple other earthquakes in there as well. So things really getting going. All of this kind of kicked off, when was it? Yesterday or the night before. We had that 6-pointer come into the Philippines. It got downgraded to like a 5.8, I believe. But ever since then, man, that kind of kicked things into motion here all across the region. I'm talking about down here through the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Kermadec Trench area as well. And up north, we've seen quite a few earthquakes here. Looks like a couple of them have dropped off, but we're still watching one quiet zone here, folks. The Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. Although we did see some deeper movement here with that 5.3 earlier today, we have not seen any subsequent shallower movement here, and I think we're starting to brew. We have been brewing for quite a few months, I believe, but man, I don't know how much more stress it can build up here in this region. Quite a bit of slip rate accumulated in a year time, so it doesn't take a whole lot of time frame to build up that stress for an earthquake. So it looks like the earthquake that was a 5.3 in the Vanuatu area is coming in as a 5.9. That's quite the upgrade from the USGS. Normally it's opposite. So that's a lot of earthquake activity today. Let's go ahead and pull up just the, let's see here. 7 days, 4.5 and above. Most of this activity, folks, happening over the last couple days and of course tonight's time frame. So look at all this activity kicking up here around the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, down along the Kermadec Trench, Tonga Trench, Vanuatu area, and not a whole lot, as I mentioned, up here along the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. It looks like we did see two earthquakes. Looks like we did have a 5.9, and that one's kind of more, it's at the southern end, I would believe. It shows here on the map, and also a 4.5 in this region, but I still think this region right here is a very good player and possibly producing a pretty large earthquake here soon. So just today, let's bring up the largest magnitudes and let's count them up here, see what we got. Make sure we got everything. I believe that's it, right? Yep. Okay. I know the Earth doesn't continue to go on and on and on a flat scale model. Got to end somewhere, right? So we got two 5.9s, a 5.8, two 5.7s, and a 5.3. Look at all these 5s and 4s. That's a lot of earthquake activity throughout the last 24 hours, folks. And again, most of that kicking off tonight and earlier today. So major movement, let me tell you. Let's look at some of these earthquakes around the Philippines. A lot of this activity is deep outside of Manila as well. The region there is it's a pretty dynamic setup here with multiple subduction zones within the region. You got the northern end of the Philippine Trench, and you got this little player over here as well. The Philippines is just in an area that's probably looking at maybe something much bigger brewing up in this area. I know we had that 7-pointer when was it, last week or the week before, up here in the north part of the Philippines. But man, something's definitely in the works here along the western Pacific. Let me tell you, it's just brewing up. Around Papua New Guinea, had a couple earthquakes as well today, including a 5.9 earlier this afternoon and a 4.5. Those earthquakes right there, somewhat moderately deep as well. There's a couple trenches here, and it's just another violent area when it comes to the tectonics here. We can see some large earthquakes in that region as well. The 5.9 that just came into the Vanuatu area is in a little swarming area that we've been watching over the last 24 hours. They did see a 5.7, a 4.9, and now a 5.9. So normally when we see activity like this, there's a lot of pressure in this region. Could be pointing towards a much larger quake in the region when we see that type of swarming. But don't discredit the quiet zones here, right? This has been awfully quiet here. Look at this Fiji Islands area. Nothing really popping up today. We did have some deeper movement 4s a couple days ago, but nothing over the last 24 hours. Kermadec Trench has been somewhat elevated as well. I'm not a fond number. Look at all those 6s in there. Not good. Around the Kermadec Islands, a 5.1. Here in the Kermadec Trench, pretty shallow. There has been some activity in the 3 range. We would have to go to the EMSC model here. A little bit closer inspection shows some of those 3s popping up here on the board. Most of those, though, I believe was from earlier this morning or this afternoon time frame. So very active, man. This is, like I say, it's had a couple days of some very quiet activity here around the Western Pacific. Most of the movement was around the Eastern Pacific here, which includes the West Coast, California, Cascadia subduction zone. So what has all this movement done to the West Coast? Well, just take a look. We are still seeing, look at this up here, man. I do not like the looks of this. That is the southern end of the Cascadia, and we're getting this little linear fashion kind of building up here along the southern end of that subduction zone, which is very capable of producing a 9.0. Even if it did a partial rupture down south here, we're still looking at probably an 8 or a 8.5 partial rupture. Complete rupture of the Cascadia, 9.0. I think some people said maybe 9.2, somewhere around there. Either way, both would be devastating, and I'm sure both would probably produce a tsunami, even if there was a partial rupture with that 8-pointer. So, yeah, watching this area pretty closely. The majority of these earthquakes down there a little bit as well, down into the subduction zone, about 22, 28 kilometers in there. Let's go ahead and check out the tremor map tonight and see what we got as far as tremor activity. And we do have some in the central portion of the Cascadia, and we don't really see that too often here. Most of the time it's on here around the Vancouver Island ranges, just outside of Seattle, a little bit into Portland, and then it kind of skips a central area, and then it picks up right back down here around Medford, southward into Northern California. So this tremor is just a little on the odd side here for the central portion of the Cascadia. What does that mean? I don't know. I mean, definitely got some pressure been building up out here. We've seen the tremor activity kind of drop off today and yesterday. But prior to that, we had about 254 each day since about the August 2nd time frame. And again, mostly up north and south. So, I don't know. Definitely got to watch that. And with this activity down south here, I still think we could be watching the West Coast, seeing a little earthquake. I shouldn't say little, but hopefully that thing does not go. Let's see. Further down south into California, typical movement around the Antelope Valley area. A little bit of activity outside of Concord, it looks like, on the Calaveras Fault and the creeping section of the San Andreas Fault, showing some movement. Ridgecrest not showing a whole lot, just a couple spotty earthquakes. Down south here, getting in on some activity around the Salton Sea. I can't really call this a swarm yet. We got about 8 or 9 earthquakes here within the last 24 hours, and it is just off the Brawley seismic zone. Now, the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, the locked area here, one that is going to produce an 8.1 one day for California, Southern California, is it's about 10 miles from this little swarm. We have seen swarms closer up here on the Brawley seismic zone. That's when we start to get a little on the concerned side, because I think any earthquake activity could trigger this one at this point, because it's been 300 and I think 322 years since we've seen the southern segment go. This specific segment right here. So a lot of built-up stress and strain on this fault system. And again, any type of swarming around there, I kind of like to take note and just be prepared. The eastern portion of the country, a couple spotty activity. Oklahoma eastward, nothing major going on across the New Madrid zone. And this activity in Puerto Rico, just a little earthquake activity. Most of it was from this morning time frame. Southwestern edge of Puerto Rico getting in on. Whoa, that was a pretty loud pop. Not for sure what that was. That sounded like it was outside. Not for sure if you guys heard that or not. But almost sounded like a gunshot. All right. You guys hear that? I'm hearing that too. Not for sure what it is. Hopefully, let me check my cameras here real quick. Sounded like it was just right outside. All right. I'm going to finish this up here real quick, but we will be watching this activity pretty closely here. Yellowstone National Park, not a whole lot of movement here across the region as far as swarming activity goes, and no major activity kicking up here in the region. So solar weather activity as well, roughly about the same as we looked at this morning time frame, although we are looking at possibly a 90% chance of a C flare, 25% chance of an M flare, as we're watching these sunspots kind of develop and grow a little bit more complex in terms of the magnetic fields. Got to watch these couple sunspots as they get much more defined in the colors. So, all right, guys, have a good night. Stay safe. And, of course, anything major happens, we will be back here with an update. Peace out.